He spat the words at me. Worthless, broken. My own wife, the woman I loved, told me I would die old and alone because I couldn't give her a child. Then she kicked me out of our home. For years, her cruel prophecy haunted me until life decided to write a very different and much more ironic ending for us both. Welcome back to Granny's Truth. If you're new here, thank you for joining a community of wisdom, survival, and second chances. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We love seeing this family spread across the world. Now, let's continue. The silence in Dr. Hartwell's office wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the heavy, suffocating silence that presses down on you just before a storm breaks, or in this case, after the last flimsy thread of hope has snapped. I stared at the framed print of a serene mountain scene on his wall, willing myself to be anywhere but there, anywhere but in that plush leather chair with its sterile scent. Victoria's stony profile rigid beside me. Dr. Hartwell, a man whose kindness had felt genuine in our early consultations, now seemed to choose his words with the careful precision of someone handling a bomb. Robert, he began, his gaze softening with a pity I didn't want, his fingers tented on his broad mahogany desk. We've reviewed all the tests, looked at every angle. While medicine rarely deals in absolutes, and the human body can sometimes surprise us, the results we have are conclusive. The likelihood of natural conception for you at this stage and with what we currently see is exceedingly low. He paused, letting the carefully chosen words hang in the air. I would say very, very improbable. Exceedingly low. Very, very improbable. The medical jargon, the gentle qualifiers like, rarely deals in absolutes and, at this stage, barely registered. All I heard was the deafening slam of a door on a future I had cherished since I was a little boy playing with toy trucks in my father's garage. A dream Victoria and I had whispered about in the warm, tangled comfort of our newlywed bed 8 years ago. We were going to have 3 children, she'd said then, her voice thick with laughter and love. 2 boys and a girl, or maybe 2 girls and a boy. We weren't picky. We just wanted them, our children, reflections of the love we thought was invincible. But love, I was learning, wasn't invincible. It could be chipped away, eroded by monthly disappointments, by the invasive procedures that left me feeling more like a science experiment than a man, by the hushed, pitying whispers of extended family, and most brutally, by the slow, chilling transformation of the woman sitting next to me. Victoria hadn't always been like this. The Victoria I married was vibrant, her laughter infectious, her touch gentle. But with each negative pregnancy test, with each fruitless cycle of hope and despair, a layer of that warmth had peeled away. Her frustration had first manifested as a quiet withdrawal, then as sharp, impatient sighs when I tried to comfort her, and eventually as a simmering resentment that seemed to find fault in everything I did. So that's it then. Victoria's voice sliced through the sterile air of the doctor's office, devoid of any emotion I could recognize. He's sterile. That's the official word, is it? Despite your fancy talk about absolutes. Dr. Hartwell flinched slightly at the crude term. Mrs. Thompson, that's a very harsh and inaccurate way to characterize it. As I said, the chances are exceedingly low, but the body can be unpredictable. We're talking about probabilities, not certainties carved in stone. There are other avenues, other possibilities to explore as a couple if you wish to build a family. No. Victoria cut him off, standing abruptly. Her chair scraped against the polished floor, the sound unnaturally loud. There's nothing more to explore. She didn't look at me. She didn't offer a hand, a word of comfort, nothing. She just turned and walked out, leaving me to gather the shattered pieces of my hope and dignity under the doctor's sympathetic gaze. The drive home was a blur of unshed tears and a roaring silence from Victoria that was more terrifying than any argument. I tried once to reach for her hand on the steering wheel. Victoria, please, I whispered, my voice cracking. He said it's not absolute. We can talk about this. There are options. She snatched her hand away as if burned. Options? What options, Robert? Adopting someone else's kid? Living a half-life? That's not what I signed up for. Her words, cold and deliberate, struck me like a physical blow. A half-life. Was that what I was to her now? Half a man. When we reached our home, the beautiful two-story house with the sprawling backyard I had naively imagined filled with the laughter of our children, she didn't wait for me. She strode ahead, unlocking the front door. And by the time I walked in, my legs trembling, she was already in the living room, her stance rigid, her face a mask of fury I'd never seen directed at me before. Not with such naked contempt. "I want you out, Robert," she said, the words dropping like stones into a deep, dark well. My breath caught. "Out." "Victoria, what are you saying?" "Out of my house," she roared, her composure finally cracking, revealing the ugly, seething anger beneath. "This is my house. I paid for it. Every damn brick. And I won't have a broken man living in it. A reminder of everything I can't have because of you. Broken." The word, her word, ricocheted around the room, around my skull. "Victoria, it's not a curse. The doctor himself said." She laughed then, a harsh, barking sound that held no humor, only malice. "The doctor said you're defective. Your body. You're the one who's useless, worthless." She stepped closer, her eyes glinting. "You think anyone will want you now? A man who can't even do the one thing he's meant to do. You'll die old and alone. No children to visit you. No one to carry on your name because you couldn't even manage that. You'll be a lonely, forgotten old man. That's your future." Each word was a fresh lash, tearing through the already raw wound in my soul. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unrestrained, but she didn't soften. If anything, my pain seemed to fuel her cruelty. "Pack your things," she sneered. "Whatever you can carry. I want you gone by tonight. Don't expect anything from me. You're getting nothing. You are nothing." Numbly, I went upstairs to our bedroom. Her bedroom now, I supposed. My hands shook so violently I could barely unhook hangers. What could I carry? My life with her, 8 years of it, couldn't be condensed into a suitcase. But then she wasn't letting me take the life, was she? Just the empty shell of the man she'd broken. I packed a few clothes, toiletries, the small worn baseball my own father had given me when I was little, a pathetic comfort. Our wedding album lay on the nightstand. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. She was waiting by the door when I came down, my single suitcase bumping against my legs, my father's baseball peeking out of my jacket pocket. Her face was impassive, her eyes cold. She didn't offer to help. She just opened the door wider. "Goodbye, Robert," she said, her voice flat. "Try not to let the loneliness eat you alive." The door slammed shut behind me, the sound echoing the final, brutal severance of my marriage, my dreams, my very identity. There was only one place to go. My mother opened the door before I even knocked. Her warm, familiar face etched with worry that deepened into profound pain as she took in my suitcase, my swollen eyes, the baseball. She didn't say, "I told you so," though she'd had her reservations about Victoria's sharp edges from the start. She just opened her arms wide, and I collapsed into them, the sobs I'd been trying to choke back finally erupting in a torrent of grief and humiliation. She kicked me out, Mom," I managed to gasp. She said I'm broken, that I'll die alone." "Oh, my sweet boy," she murmured, her hand stroking my hair, her own tears dampening my shoulder. "Hush now, you're home. You're not alone. You'll never be alone here." The first few weeks at Mom's house were a blur of unfamiliar yet deeply familiar grief. It wasn't the sharp, acute pain of losing a loved one to death, but the gnawing, hollow ache of being discarded, deemed unworthy. Mom was my rock, her quiet strength a constant presence. She didn't cry, didn't offer platitudes, just made me coffee, ensured I ate something, and let me cry into her shoulder until my sobs subsided into ragged gasps. The divorce papers arrived via a curt courier a month later. Victoria, true to her word, had handled everything with cold efficiency. There was nothing to contest. She'd made sure of that. She kept the house, the car, the life we had built. I was left with my clothes, my broken heart, and her parting gift of a prophecy I couldn't shake. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the days began to have a little more shape. Mom encouraged me to apply for teaching positions. "You always had a gift with young people, Robert," she'd say, her voice soft but firm. "Don't let that woman take your passions, too." The thought of being around children, of nurturing young minds, was both appealing and terrifying. After countless applications and nerve-wracking interviews where I felt my smile was a brittle facade, I landed a position as a high school history teacher at Westfield Academy. Walking into my own classroom for the first time, with its maps and timelines and rows of desks, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time, a quiet sense of anticipation. My students, with their boundless energy, their unfiltered questions, and their genuine curiosity, became my lifeline. Their eager faces when they finally grasped a difficult concept, their animated debates about historical events, these were tiny anchors in the turbulent sea of my emotions. I poured myself into teaching, into creating an engaging space for them. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave me moments of genuine joy, a sense of usefulness that Victoria had tried so hard to extinguish. I was shaping young lives, making a difference. I wasn't useless. Years passed. 3, then 4. I was Mr. Thompson now, a respected teacher. I had my own small apartment, a cozy haven I decorated with books and plants, a testament to my reclaimed independence. The sharp edges of my grief had softened, though the scars remained. Then one crisp autumn afternoon, just as I was starting to believe I had finally put Victoria and her cruelty behind me, an envelope arrived. It was thick, creamy, and expensive-looking, addressed in elegant calligraphy. My stomach clenched even before I saw the return address. "Mr. and Mrs. Alexander Kingsley request the pleasure of your company at the marriage of their daughter, Charlotte, to Mr. Victoria Marie Thompson." Victoria was getting married. Of course she was. She wouldn't have waited. She needed her legacy, her perfect family. The invitation wasn't just an announcement. It was a missile, expertly aimed to wound. But as I stared at the embossed lettering, at her name linked with another man's, something else stirred within me, something unexpected. Beneath the fresh wave of pain, a tiny, hard ember of defiance began to glow. She thought she could break me with this, did she? She thought this grand display of her new happiness would be the final nail in the coffin of my self-worth. For years, her curse of a lonely, childless demise had haunted me. But looking at that invitation, at the arrogance and cruelty it represented, I felt a different kind of fire ignite. She would not define my future. Her words would not be my epitaph. Around this time, Sarah Martinez walked into my life. Not with fanfare, but with the gentle unfolding of a sunrise. I met her at a community fundraiser for the local library, an event I'd almost skipped. She was a nurse, introduced by a mutual acquaintance. What struck me first were her eyes, kind, intelligent, with a hint of laughter crinkling at the corners. She didn't dominate the conversation. She listened. She asked thoughtful questions. She remembered the name of the obscure historical figure I'd mentioned an hour earlier. Our first date was coffee, which stretched into a long walk through the park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. There was an ease between us, a comfortable rhythm to our conversation that felt blessedly normal yet wonderfully new. Still, the ghost of Victoria lingered. As Sarah and I grew closer, as a few dates turned into seeing each other regularly, a familiar anxiety began to coil in my stomach. She was kind, respectful, everything Victoria hadn't been. But the fear of history repeating itself, the dread of that eventual, inevitable question about children, about my failure, was a constant hum beneath the surface of my happiness. One evening, after a particularly lovely dinner at her apartment, where she'd cooked a surprisingly delicious and only slightly burnt pasta dish, I knew I had to tell her. If this was to be anything real, she needed to know the whole story, the ugly parts included. We were sitting on her sofa, a comfortable silence between us, soft music playing in the background. "Sarah," I began, my heart thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. "There's something you need to know about me, about my past." She turned, her expression open, patient. She simply waited. And so the words tumbled out, about Victoria, about the years of trying, the doctors, the devastating diagnosis as I perceived its finality, the cruel divorce, Victoria's parting curse, even the sting of her wedding invitation. I laid bare my deepest wound, my greatest shame, fully expecting her to recoil, to offer polite sympathies before making a hasty retreat. When I finished, my voice thick with unshed tears, she was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out, her hand covering mine, her touch warm and firm. "Robert," she said, her voice gentle but unwavering. "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for trusting me with that pain." She looked directly into my eyes. What Victoria did, what she said, that was about her cruelty, her inadequacy, not yours. Your worth, the incredible man you are, has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not you can father children. Tears I hadn't realized I was holding back began to fall. "But what if you want children, Sarah? A big family?" She smiled softly. "If children are meant for us, Robert, in whatever way they might come, then that would be a blessing. But the family I want, first and foremost, is with you. You are what matters to me. Your heart, your mind, your spirit. The rest, we figure it out together if and when we need to. Or we don't. And that's okay too." A year later, on a crisp spring evening, during a quiet dinner at our favorite little bistro, Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "Robert Thompson," she said, her eyes shining with love. "You are the strongest, kindest, most incredible man I have ever known. Will you do me the honor of being my husband?" My yes was immediate, joyful, and unclouded by the shadows of the past. Our wedding was small, intimate, a celebration of our love surrounded by the people who truly cherished us. Mom, my close colleagues, Sarah's warm and welcoming family. As I looked into Sarah's eyes during our vows, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was the happiness I had thought was lost to me forever. During our reception, held at a charming nearby restaurant, I was in the middle of heartfelt toasts when a ripple of unease went through the small crowd. A figure stepped forward, and my blood ran cold. It couldn't be, but it was. Victoria. She looked much the same, impeccably dressed, an arrogant smirk playing on her lips, but her eyes held a glint of something venomous. Well, Robert," she drawled, her voice loud enough to carry, dripping with sarcasm. "Quite the little gathering. I almost didn't recognize you. Happiness, or perhaps just sheer desperation, looks different on you." I felt frozen, my hand instinctively gripping Sarah's arm. The joyous atmosphere curdled, replaced by thick, suffocating tension. "Victoria," Sarah said, her voice low and steady, though I could feel the coiled strength in her posture. She stepped slightly in front of me, a protective shield. "You're not welcome here. I suggest you leave." Victoria let out a short, derisive laugh. "Oh, I'm not welcome. What is this? His consolation prize wedding? I just came to offer my congratulations and perhaps a little friendly advice." She turned her sneer toward my wife. "Make sure you know what you're getting into. This one comes with a factory defect. Can't produce the goods, if you catch my drift. Couldn't give me a real family, so don't expect one yourself." But before I could crumble, before the darkness could fully take hold, Sarah acted. She didn't raise her voice, didn't resort to Victoria's level. Instead, she exuded an aura of unshakable calm and authority. "That's enough," Sarah stated, her voice like chilled steel. "Your cruelty says far more about you than it ever could about my husband." She signaled discreetly to the restaurant manager. You will leave now, or you will be removed. Victoria, perhaps realizing she had misjudged Sarah's quiet strength for weakness, gave one last smirk. Just thought you should know what you signed up for, she said, backing away. Enjoy your empty life. And then she was gone, escorted out, her hateful laughter a faint, fading echo. Life with Sarah was everything I had once dreamed a partnership could be. We built a home together, not just the physical structure of our cozy house with its flourishing garden, but a home in each other. I was now 45. The dream of children, once a burning inferno that had nearly consumed me, had softened into a quiet, bittersweet ache. My life was full. My work as a teacher brought immense satisfaction. My friendships were rich. And my love for Sarah was the unwavering bedrock of my happiness. Then one Tuesday morning, Sarah came to me with news that changed everything. "Robert," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I'm pregnant." The world tilted. Pregnant. After all these years, after Dr. Hartwell's grave pronouncement about exceedingly low likelihoods, this was impossible. This was a miracle. "Are you absolutely sure?" I managed to stammer. Sarah smiled, pulling out a test with 2 clear lines. "I'm sure. We're going to have a baby, Robert." A wave of emotion so potent it left me breathless washed over me. Shock, disbelief, an overwhelming tidal wave of joy that was so immense it brought tears to my eyes. The joy was compounded a few weeks later at our first ultrasound. The sonographer moved the wand across Sarah's belly, her brow furrowed in concentration. Then a slow smile spread across her face. "Well, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," she said, turning the screen toward us. "It seems you're in for double the surprise. There are 2 heartbeats. You're having twins." Twins. If I thought my heart couldn't hold more joy, I was wrong. 2 babies, our babies. It felt like every prayer I'd ever whispered, every tear I'd ever shed over my lost dream, was being answered, and then some. When I decided to share our happiness on social media, posting a picture Sarah had taken of me with my hand on her growing belly, the outpouring of love was immediate and heartwarming. And then, amidst the sea of well wishes, a comment appeared that made my blood run cold. It was from Victoria Thompson. Her words, sharp and public, leaped off the screen. "Still a liar, I see. Whose kids are you pretending are yours now, Robert? Some things never change." This time, she had gone too far. The shock gave way to a surge of white-hot anger, an indignation so fierce it almost choked me. I called her immediately. "Victoria," I began, my voice clear and cutting. "I saw your comment. Your attempt to publicly humiliate me, to call me a liar about my own children, is beyond contemptible, even for you." She chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Just calling it like I see it, sweetheart. You couldn't give me a child, so forgive me if I find your sudden fertility a bit far-fetched." Far-fetched? My anger flared hot and cleansing. "Let me tell you what's far-fetched, Victoria. It's a woman so blinded by her own ego, so steeped in her own cruelty, that she'd rather believe her ex-husband is a liar than accept that life can hold joy and miracles for him after she discarded him." I took a deep breath. "You know, all those years you blamed me, all those times you called me broken, defective, useless. Did it ever once cross your narrow, self-absorbed mind that maybe, just maybe, you were the problem?" There was a beat of silence on the other end. A silence so profound I could hear the frantic thumping of my own heart. Then a choked sound, something between a scoff and a gasp. That's ridiculous," she finally stammered. But the arrogance in her voice had cracked, replaced by a sliver of something I'd never heard from her before. "Uncertainty. Is it, Victoria? You've been remarried for years now, haven't you? Still waiting on that perfect heir from your perfect new husband? Perhaps it's time you looked in the mirror for the defect instead of trying to project your failings onto everyone else." I didn't wait for a response. I ended the call, my hands shaking but my spirit soaring with a sense of release so profound it was almost dizzying. A few months later, Sarah and I welcomed our twins, a boy, Samuel Robert, and a girl, Hope Victoria, her middle name a quiet reminder that even from pain can come beauty. Holding my children, these precious, perfect beings, looking into Sarah's adoring eyes, my heart felt like it might burst with joy so pure, so profound, it eclipsed every shadow of the past. News eventually trickled back to us through mutual acquaintances about Victoria. My words had apparently burrowed under her skin like a parasite. The seed of doubt I'd planted had taken root and grown into a monstrous, consuming anxiety. She'd secretly undergone fertility testing. The results had shattered her. Victoria Thompson, the woman who had built her entire case for divorcing me on my perceived brokenness, was diagnosed with severe fertility issues, irreversible. Her husband, learning the truth and perhaps the full story of her cruelty to me, divorced her. Sometimes, late at night, rocking one of my babies to sleep, would think of Victoria. There was no triumph in her downfall. Not really. Just a quiet, somber understanding of how life has a way of balancing its accounts. My life was the antithesis of her curse. I wasn't old and alone. I was 45, a new father, cherished by a wonderful wife, surrounded by a loving family, my life richer and more vibrant than I could have ever imagined. Victoria had tried to write my ending, but she had failed. My story was one of resilience, of unexpected miracles, and of a love that had healed the deepest wounds.